Breakfast is Tech Talk with Matthew Dixon.
I hope you don't think this segment's gone to the dogs, Richard.
That's a Christmas song for animals, for dogs.
I like it.
Apparently what they did was they played sounds to dogs. What sort of dogs do you have?
A little toy poodle and a little
They're
shih
not
tzu.
dogs. They're not dogs.
Sometimes they'll lick the hairs off your leg. They're pretty
That's
scary.
right. And they played all these sounds to about 150 dogs, and they put all together the sounds for the Christmas song that the dogs stood up to.
Yeah,
Their
wow.
ears perked up and the like.
Oh, well, I'll tell my youngest daughter, she'll be very excited. to hear
Oh, the
that.
one you sang that song about
There's no
with the
Dubbington
no
song, that's
democracy, no Dubbington.
That's it.
You better not remind me of that. I'll embarrass you.
Well, I
even
didn't.
more.
You pulled that one out.
Well, you started it all. Hey, I talked to Roger Fletcher earlier. This big battery that he's going to put in Fletcher's. It's made lots of little batteries to try and make sure that they fill in the gaps
Yeah.
when things go down.
And that's exactly how electric vehicles work, for example, when you might have a 100 kilowatt hour battery in an electric vehicle. It's made up of little batteries that are basically the same size as a AA battery. So again, it is so that you can have two things. One, you can fit in all those little gaps as you mentioned, but also they're designed such that one battery in that array might be able to fail, or one small array might be able to fail as time goes on, which doesn't stop the whole battery from working. So they're designed such that you can have little failures in the battery, and that just degrades the overall battery life of the battery, but it's not like the whole thing stops. If you just had one big mother battery and there was some failure, then the whole battery would stop. So
What about that one over in South Australia that Elon Musk put? What's happening with that? That's a lithium.
lithium ion battery, that one is, yeah, that's right. So it would be very similar. I only saw a little bit on Rogers yesterday. I was at the State of the Region function yesterday and saw the announcement, and essentially it will be a similar concept, lithium ion batteries, and at the moment it's 2.2 megawatts, I think, from memory, megawatt hours, and the idea will be that they'll charge that from the grid, so it'll be a bit of a test case. So they'll charge it from the grid, they'll use that as part of their production with the view to obviously getting to the point where they'll be charging it from renewables and then making sure they can keep running the whole meat processing there. Obviously Roger doesn't want the abattoir to stop and then all of these people are out of work and sitting around twiddling their thumbs and meat's not getting produced, etc., etc. So it's really a test case to begin with, and put it in industry and see how that works. And I think this will be a bit of a trailblaze for lots of industry.
Matt Dickinson, I'll use this old cliche, is this the way of the future? We're going to have to think about not just turning on a light and hoping it comes out of a power station somewhere.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is the way of the future. Unfortunately, Australia does seem to be lagging a little
Hugely.
bit. Yeah, I was being polite, Richard.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is the way of the future, because we will get to the stage at some point in our future where renewables are used for most of our energy.
See, that's a scary word. We say renewables. It's newable, though, isn't it?
Well, no, it's energy that's able to be renewed without having to burn up something. So it's wind, it's solar, it's wave, it's all these sort of things that we've got all this source of energy. You just got to capture it.
Bloody greenie, that's what you are.
Every square metre at the equator, 1 square metre at midday has 1 kilowatt of power being thrust onto that earth. So when you start to think about that, we've got this great energy source, the sun. Sure, it only shines during the day. That's pretty obvious. But you've got this energy source from the sun that we could be using. We've got wind. We've got the ability for batteries. And so use the sun during the day and batteries at night.
We have got so much sunlight here, and yet we flush it down the loo.
Many years ago, it was about 2008, I wrote an article that estimated how much solar panel space we'd have to power Australia. And solar panels are much more efficient now, but that article I wrote said that if we had a 30 kilometre by 30 kilometre square, so about 900 square kilometres, stick that in the middle of the desert somewhere, that would power Australia. Now, it wouldn't be sensible to put it in the middle of the desert because you've got to get the power to all the homes. So what we're doing now with solar panels across so many houses across Australia, you're basically getting to that point. And there's some talk, in one of the discussions yesterday at the State of the Region function, was some talk about actually setting up some solar panel farms in the middle of Australia, in this desert that we use for pretty much nothing, and then actually having cables that are huge. And we're talking about cables that are almost a metre in diameter and shipping power out to places like Singapore.
But
so
we have
exporting that.
We've got a couple of big solar farms in our backyard.
Oh, we have,
You
yeah.
haven't
And that's
travelled very
sensible
far,
to
do
put them where you
Absolutely.
need the power.
Why aren't we building houses automatically putting solar panels on the roof?
Yeah, we should.
I've got an answer. It looks ugly.
Well,
we're going to have to design something that fits in with our roof structure, that looks like tiles or corrugated iron, so that so it doesn't look like a hospital with a black cross on it.
Yeah, they've got that now. You can actually put a roof in that's actually combined roof panel and solar panel. There's two disadvantages at the moment if you do that. A, it's more expensive. B, it's less efficient. So it's still the most efficient way is to actually stick the solar panels on the roof of your house. But I'm sure the first time someone put a TV antenna up on their roof, they went, "Oh, that looks ugly." But now everyone's got a TV antenna up on their roof. So
Okay.
I think so. It's just a matter of becoming acceptable.
And now boil it all down, Matty Dickerson. The whole idea is to become efficient and to look after our planet, because we're only renting this thing. We're
That's
making a
right.
mess out of it. So we should be praised and, if you like, uplifted and be encouraged to do this sort of stuff that takes away what we're used to in this modern era. Yet EVs are going to be slugged with tax.
Well,
tax, and tax.
Yeah, and the road, I just don't understand this one, Richard. So per kilometre tax that South Australia's announced, Victoria's announced, and they put a price on it, 2.5 cents per kilometre. And what I don't get is that at the moment an EV is more expensive to purchase. It works out.
Who gets that money?
Well, this is the point. You pay extra stamp duty, you pay extra GST, and for many vehicles they fall into the luxury car tax category. So you're getting slugged with 3 different taxes when you buy it. You're paying more tax. So it's almost as if you paid your tax up front when you buy your EV, and then the running costs are very low. But if you use electricity at your home rather than some of the free superchargers to charge your car, the electricity has got GST on it as well. So you're being taxed with your electricity. You paid a lot of upfront tax to begin with, and so those people, and we're only talking about 0.6% of the Australian sales last year, of the over 1 million cars that were sold last year, only 0.6% were electric. So they've paid a lot of their tax up front. So then to try and slug them with a tax afterwards doesn't make a lot of sense. What we should be doing, exactly as you said, encouraging
That's right.
people to use it, and we see that around the world. Norway, I've mentioned before, 55%. Even China, 4.9%. That 4.9% equates to over 1 million cars. So China sold more cars that were electric last year than our total car market in Australia. So we're lagging a long way behind. And some of those countries, not all of them, they put little things in place, little incentives in place.
Yeah, but there's no thought about why they're taxing it. It's just because they know they're going to lose the double dipping that they have out of the GST and the petrol tax at the station. And they think, oh, we're going to have to make up the gaps here somewhere, so we'll charge those who've got EVs. What about those who've got solar? Are they being charged a solar tax?
Well, we used to get better rates on paid, or
That's
money
right.
that was paid, the tariffs there, but they've obviously dropped quite dramatically. But go back for a minute to your tax that you talked about there in terms of the fuel tax. Cars are becoming more fuel efficient, and everyone is encouraged to buy a more fuel efficient car, but they're not increasing suddenly the tax on those. So we're using less petrol
They're
anyway.
going to bring the GST up.
Well, they do bring the GST up, so you're
So they
taxing
do
on a
that,
tax.
they get it, yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting is 1959 was the last year, so back before you and I were born, was the last
That's
year
right.
since we actually had a direct correlation
Yep.
between fuel excise and roads. All the tax at the petrol bowser right now goes to consolidated revenue. We might get 30 or 40% back for the road. So this tax on EV kilometres doesn't make sense. Now, what would make sense is if you're going to tax that, tax all cars and actually put a weight component in there as well. So if you're driving a heavier car and then per kilometre, that makes sense to do that across all cars. But targeting EVs when the tax has already been paid up front doesn't make a lot of sense.
Wait till they start taxing us because we've got batteries in our torches. That's true.
Breakfast, eats, take talk with Matthew Dickerson.